All right, sorry about that. I can only record 10 minutes at a time. So I know there's a lot here, but I really think it could benefit you by reviewing these with me. So let's keep looking here. Lynching. We talked about lynching. Execution by a mob, all right, typically by hangings. Seizure and execution of a person by a mob, not legally, not through a trial. They didn't illegally search homes. They didn't steal your property. They executed people by a mob. Let's keep looking here. How did the Plessy v. Ferguson decision affect racial relations in the South? It forced whites and African Americans to use the same public facilities. Did they have to use the same water fountains? It's one example. It allowed segregation to continue legally. Seems like a pretty good answer. It improved the quality of African American facilities. Bike day. Look at the two different bikes. They were not equal. They were not the same quality. Ordered segregation should be ended in public schools. Allowed it to continue legally. Let's keep looking. All right, two-part question, part A, part B. So you have to read this text. My name is Chu Jing Yi. I came to the United States from China last year to join my husband, who has been working on the new railroads being built all over the West. I'm glad I came when I did. I heard that Congress just passed a law excluding future Chinese immigrants from coming to the country. I'm sad that we didn't seem to be welcome here, but we were building a good life for ourselves anyway. Hey, they're excluding future Chinese immigrants from coming to this country. All right, so we're looking for a law that excluded those Chinese. Provided text describes what law? The Chinese Exclusion Act. All right, we talked about how we as Americans didn't want Chinese here because labor unions said they would work for too cheap. Unions wanted this law in order to what? Prevent Chinese from taking American jobs because they'd work for cheaper. Remember, we talked about JOBs, jobs. Unions wanted to protect those. Laws that exempted men from voting. Okay. From voting restrictions, sorry. That was your grandfather clause, because the other voting restrictions, as long as your grandpa voted. Inexpensive variety show that became popular. Hey, these were the vaudevilles that we looked at. People had more time, more money. Separation of people by their race. They were being segregated against. Group's goal is to abolish segregation through legal action. We just talked about it, the NAACP. Finally, promote white supremacy in the Jim Crow South, continue to make African Americans feel like second-class citizens. That was the Ku Klux Klan. Keep going here. We have a couple more. Law that forbid monopolies. Another word for an monopoly. A monopoly is a trust. That was antitrust. Okay, antitrust. A journalist that discovers wrongdoings. Those are our muckrakers. Require federal inspection of meat processing. Okay, that's the Meat Inspection Act that we talked about. Regulate railroads. That's the Hepburn Act. They were going to regulate the railroad rates. Gave Congress the power to levy an income tax. You can get a job at 16. You have to pay a tax, though. Banned shipping of impure food and deliberate mislabeling of food and drugs. It was the Pure Food and Drug Act. Remember, we looked at those old labels. Combination of companies, otherwise known as a monopoly. We just said it, it's trust. A group fighting for the rights of a worker. It's a union. 17 senators, that alliteration that we talked about. Direct election of senators. All right, the ideas expressed in this resolution were made into reality by, so let's keep looking. First of all, here's a big hint. Susan B. Anthony. Okay, we talked a lot about Susan B. Anthony and women's suffrage. Oh, hey, look, National Women's Suffrage Association. what is, first of all, suffrage? Which one of these has to do with suffrage? Northern Securities case? No. Initiatives, referendums, recalls? No, those are votings. Hepburn Act? No, that's trains. 19th Amendment gave women suffrage. All right. During the Progressive Era, much legislation was passed that included primaries, initiatives, referendums, recalls. That was to give people voting power, to give people say and power in government. Two-part question. Make sure you do both parts. Read each of the two questions and select a statement that's written by a muckraker. All right, so we looked at the muckraker, and we said, Jacob Riis was a muckraker. We also looked at Upton Sinclair. There would be meat stored in great piles in rooms, and the water from leaky roofs would drip all over it. Thousands of rats would race about it. It was too dark to see the places well, but a man could run his hand over the piles of meat and sweep handfuls of dried dung of rats off. Hey, we talked about the meat packing industry, and we said, hey, there were problems there. We're going to expose those problems the muckrakers did. While competition may sometimes be hard for the individual, it is best for the race, since it ensures the survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest, social Darwinism. Which statement best describes the goals? To expose the problems of business. To expose the problems of business. All right, we only have a couple more here. Most progressives agreed that government should protect workers and help the poor. That's the point of the Progressive Era, helping people. President Roosevelt tried to rid America of referendums. No. Prohibition, haven't really talked about it yet. Unfair business practices and trusts. All right. Remember, we talked a lot about trying to use the Sherman Antitrust Act, the Clayton Antitrust Act. Two more. This woman was the leading organizer for women's suffrage campaigns. Was once arrested for attempting to vote. Susan B. Anthony. Last question here. Select all that apply. All right, so these are tough ones. All the arguments not in support of suffrage. Not in support of suffrage. Women's thoughts matter. Well, if you think that a woman's thoughts matter, you're probably going to say, well, then they should be able to vote. So that is in support of suffrage. It's not the right answer. Okay. Women might become too masculine if they vote, if they get suffrage. Sounds like that's not in support. So let's check that one. Woman's roles in the house. Well, if they're only supposed to be in the house, they're not going to vote. So that's that is. Whoops. Sorry, I need to fix that. There we go. Not the 14th Amendment. Okay. Best answer here should have been those three. Those are not in support of suffrage. They might become too masculine. They're supposed to be in the house. Just going to waste the nation's money because they're just going to vote the exact same way as their husbands. Hey, guys, that's a quick review of the test in its entirety. And I know there's a lot there, but I really want to see you guys do well. All right.